Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix of women's MMA with Got You Covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnold De Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are doing well for yourself. Wash your hands, eat healthy, be safe, make sure your elders don't get sick, whatever. I'm not your parent. You can do whatever you want, just don't endanger the lives of others. Please. So coming up, here's the strange part. So another UFC event is coming up at UFC Fight Night 174, which is coming up in just 3 days from now. I'll be talking about the fight with Ariana Lipski after the commercial break here, but I want to talk about the next two UFC events here because UFC, their scheduling is kind of weird and off right now in the sense that the August 1st event is there's a huge question mark going on right there. I'll go into it. But what's coming up on UFC Fight Night 174 here? So I'm looking at UFC 174, and we have Carlos Barza versus Marina Rodriguez. That's very bizarre to me, because Carlos Barza was expected to face against Claudia Cadella, and now she's gonna fight against Marina Rodriguez. And I said this before, if Carlos Barza doesn't have an impressive performance in her fight against Michelle Waterson, she's gonna be pretty much stuck in a gatekeeper role, just outside the top 5 there. And here's the thing, even if Carlos Barza were to fight against Claudia Cadella, would that place her in the top 5? Not really. That would just make her number 6 rank. So right now, Carlos Barza's position right now is it's very interesting on where it goes. She's against a really game Marina Rodriguez, who is one of the top prospects in the strawweight division. And if I were just to go by Carlos Barza's recent performances, and the fact that she is improving in her striking, but she fights so passive, and it feels like she's way too intimidated to go and risk the potential of getting knocked out or getting really hurt when she has to go dive in for a takedown, that she becomes very passive, and her fights both become boring, and they're also not impressive if Esparza were to win. Like, there's a lot of wrestlers have to do a little more often, which I try to show MMA to all my friends, and they're always bothered with the wrestler, because they're like, well, why can't the wrestler just go in there and take him down? Like we saw, like I'll show them Khabib, and like, wow, Khabib, he was willing to take the risk and go for a takedown, and now he's winning the fights. Why can't other fighters do the same that Khabib is doing? And I said, well, Khabib is willing to take the risk of getting really hurt for a takedown. Not all wrestlers can do that. A lot of wrestlers are so focused on trying to win the fight through the scoring system that they're afraid or intimidated by the prospect of failing to go for the takedown and being put in a very bad situation. And my friends are like, yeah, but I understand why the wrestlers don't do that, why the wrestlers aren't as reckless, because you shouldn't be a reckless wrestler. But they should try something. They should obviously try something, and it bothers them when a wrestler or a striker is down on points and they're not really doing anything about it. They practically kind of give up in the last minute of the fight, but they half-heartedly give up. It's very confusing. It very is. But as far as it gets Marina Rodriguez, I expect Marina to go win the fight off the basis that I am not impressed. I am more impressed with Marina's last recent performances than I am with Esparza. So that's what I'm going for. But the reason why I'm talking about the next two UFC events is because, as of right now, the Holm Irene Aldana fight, that fight got dropped. That fight got cancelled. In just 1 week's time, we have a UFC event coming up, UFC Fight Night, on August 1st. And as of yesterday, there were only 2 fights announced. Just to create some reference here. The UFC Fight Night event coming up this Saturday, just 3 days from now at the time of this recording, that card has about 16 fights. 14 to 16 fights. It has about 14 to 16 fights. And so how many fights are there in the August 1st card? Well, the August 1st card, that card as of right now, as I am talking, has 2 fights. And the main event got scrapped. So this coming in from ESPN, from El Hawani, Holm, Irena, Aldana, UFC Main Event is called off. The UFC has been forced to change next weekend's main events. The Holm vs. Irena Aldana headliner has been cancelled after Aldana was forced to withdraw. The current plan, according to sources, is to rebook Holm and Aldana for an October 5th main event. As a result, the Derek Bronson vs. Edmund Shabazian fight has been promoted to the main event. The current plan is for it to be a 3-round headliner as opposed to a 5-rounder due to the short notice switch. The Holm Aldana bantamweight fight was expected to be a potential number 1 contender fight for Aldana, who has won 2 in a row and 5 in her last 6 fights. Shabazian, who is 11-0, who is co-managed by former UFC champion Ronda Rousey, is considered one of the brightest young stars in the sport. The undefeated 22-year-old has finished 10 of his last 11 fights, including his last 3 in the first round. He most recently defeated Brad Tavares via knockout in November. This kid is special, Rossi said. He is one in a generation, and I know what the F I'm looking at, and you know what? You're looking at. And it's interesting to finally be in this time when everyone else is starting to take notice. He's such a sweet and quiet kid, but man, he's a killer. When people take a moment to watch him, they'll never be able to forget him. UFC President Dana White said, and this is the biggest test of his career. Bronson is number 8 by the UFC, he's number 9. If he can get through Bronson and if he wins this fight, it's straight killers from that point on. He's looking at breaking into the top 5, which is very, very hard to do in the UFC. Derek Bronson is 27, has won his last 2 in a row. His last UFC appearance was 11 months ago when he defeated Ian Heinisch via unanimous decision. The event will take place at the UFC Apex facility in Las Vegas. Alright. So was it if I were to talk about this 2 days ago, which is why I did my last podcast, there's not even no venue. There was none. The August 1st event had no venue being announced. And there were 2 fights that were announced in grand total for that card. Once again, the other UFC fight event coming up this Saturday has 14 to 16 fights happening. This card, 2. Technically 1, because one of them got cancelled. But new news came out in that there will be another fight being added in for the card. So this coming in by MMA Junkie, Joanne Calderwood explains why she's fighting Jennifer Maia, not UFC champion Valentina Shevchenko. Johan Calderwood will not be fighting for a UFC title, at least for now. The UFC Women's Flyweight contender stepped in as a late replacement to take on Jennifer Maia at UFC on ESPN 31 on August 1st in Las Vegas. Maia's original opponent, Vivian Rujo, was forced to withdraw from the contest after testing positive for COVID-19 in the pre-fight screenings. Late notice switches happen often in MMA, but Johan Calderwood's 14-4 MMA career and 6-4 in the UFC came as a surprise to many, as she was slated to challenge UFC champ Valentina Shevchenko. The title bout was supposed to go down at UFC 251 in June, but it was postponed after Valentina suffered an injury. With this sport, you've got to be ready for anything, Johan Calderwood said on her Instagram. I got word that Valentina pushed a date for a return back again, and I made the decision to take a fight. God is good. The next day, I got offered this one. Super excited because I was ready and I am still ready. We all take risk, and risk of waiting until the end of the year or whatever the champ does decide to come back is one that I don't want to take. I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly. Joanne Calderwood is 3-1 in her last 4 UFC bouts. She's coming off a split decision win over Andrea Lee at UFC 242 in September. Meanwhile, Jennifer Maia is looking to bounce back from a decision loss to Caitlin Chookagian. Prior to that, she has had a 2-fight win streak. So Joanne Calderwood is matched up against Jennifer Maia, who I expect to win this fight. This is a real risky fight. It's very risky for Calderwood because Jennifer Maia, she's a killer. She can compete with anybody in the top 5. She fought against Caitlin Chookagian, who at one point was considered the second best fighter in the flyweight division, and now Jennifer Maia is going to compete against another fighter who is now considered the second best fighter in the flyweight division, right behind Valentina Shevchenko. So there's a huge risk for Joanne Calderwood, but why is Joanne Calderwood fighting against Jennifer Maia? Why is she not holding out for the title fights? And this got me to thinking back when Dana White said, you know what, this business, this fight business, it's not a career, it's an opportunity. And so fighters should go and make the most out of it. He always praises fighters who are fine being called up and fighting in the last minute. And I thought about Hannah Cifers, because Hannah Cifers, she fought against Mackenzie Dern. She fought against Maria Agapova. Two fighters who fight way bigger than their actual division. Those two women are significantly a lot more larger than Hannah Cifers. But Hannah Cifers is like, okay, you know what? I'm 10-4 in my UFC career. I think she understands her actual ceiling in the UFC. She recognizes her own potential. You look at her, you look at Agapova, you look at Cynthia Cabello, you look at Amanda Ribas, and you're telling yourself, is Hannah Cifers good enough to even compete within the top 10 of either the strawweight or the fight division? And to be honest with you, no. Hannah Cifers doesn't have a high enough ceiling to go compete in either of the divisions and compete in the top 10 and compete in the top 10. She doesn't. But she's making the most out of every opportunity. She fought against Maria Agapova, short notice. She fought against Mackenzie Dern, short notice. She was able to bank in nearly $80,000. $80,000 in just 2 weeks. Now, as a frame of reference here, because it's impossible for me to talk about the UFC without talking about money. The average household income in America, taking in New York, Texas, California, Alabama, Ohio, the average household income is roughly $60,000. $60,000 a year. Now, me being a person who lives in California, if I were to make $30,000 a year, and then my wife or girlfriend was making $30,000 a year, me and her together are making the average American income. Hannah Cifers, 2 weeks, $80,000. Now think about this. If Hannah Cifers were to compete yet again this year, she'd be making another $40,000, $40,000. She had made 6 figures in the span of 2 months. 6 figures in 2 months. That's astounding. It's also very astounding that if you go on Twitter, in my Twitter feed, I'm seeing the most random things ever. Apparently there's a woman who had an OnlyFans account, and in her time having OnlyFans, whatever your opinion is on OnlyFans, it's whatever, she made about $14,000 in 1 week. She made $14,000 in 1 week. Hannah Cifers made $80,000 in 2 weeks. And if she competes as a last minute call up again, she could potentially make over $100,000 in the span of 2 months. That's astounding. That is astounding. And she's making the most out of her opportunity. And the reason I'm talking about Hannah Cifers is because Johan Calderwood has the potential of being a champion. Johan Calderwood is the better fighter than Hannah Cifers. If Hannah Cifers and Calderwood were to fight each other 100 times, the majority of the time, Johan Calderwood would be winning the fights. Majority of the time. But even then, who right now in the year of 2020 is having a more successful career? Who out of the two of them is the one making money? Joanne Calderwood is out on the side. She's out there waiting for a title fight. Now, if she were to compete, if she were to stall off and fight against Valentina Shevchenko and she were to win the belt, she'd be making a lot of money in the long term. Long term, she'd be making a lot of money. She'd get the belt. She'd get a guaranteed 6 figures. And depending on how well she does in her run as champion, she could potentially be making $200K per year. Potentially $400K a year being a champion. I think Valentina makes about $150K right now, and that's not including her win bonuses. So, and also, and Valentina's she also gets performance of the night and win bonuses, she gets a bunch of bonuses, Valentina does. So she makes about $300K per fight. Valentina does. So Valentina's making money. Hannah Cifers making money, being not really winning. Where does that leave Johan Calderwood? She's just waiting. And so her fighting against Jennifer Maia, it's also good for Jennifer Maia. Now, both of them have the opportunity to go make money during a time when unemployment is at an all-time high right now. So I can't blame either of those two women being open to competing. Now, it sucks for Vivian Araujo that her opportunity to go make money has been taken away from her. But hopefully she bounces back, and we get to see a potential fight between Jennifer Maia versus Vivian, hopefully in the near future. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after a short break here.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So, things are getting a wee bit complicated as it pertains to scheduling and for fight cards for the upcoming UFC events. But I will be talking about a recent fight that just recently happened, which took place a couple days ago, and it was Ariana Lipski versus Luana Carolina. It was the only women's fight in the main card for the UFC Fight Night event. That Figueroa versus Benavidez for the vacant flyweight title. And I talked about it in another podcast where I was saying, you know what, the divisions are getting really healthy now. Like, it was actually a blessing in disguise that Henry Cejudo retired and he vacated both of those belts. So now we got Peter Yan as champion, and now we got Figueiredo as champion, and it's a good thing. Both divisions are stacked right now with a whole lot of talents. We got champions being represented, so I'm happy for that. But still, the UFC featherweight division, the UFC women's featherweight division, it's it's a little underwhelming. And when I mean underwhelming, I mean it's kind of non-existent, because it practically is non-existent right now. If you go in the UFC rankings right now, it's going to show you who are the top fighters for each division, who are the best pound-for-pound fighters. UFC featherweight division, nothing. No names. Name one good fighter. Okay, name one fighter right now in the women's featherweight division who you believe can go toe-to-toe or can go stack up with any other women's fighter in either the flyweight or the bantamweight division. Megan Anderson. Only Megan. No disrespect to Felicia Spencer, but I believe Megan Anderson has a higher ceiling than Spencer does if both of them were to compete in the other divisions, in the other women's divisions here. So, you know what? The featherweight division, that's sort of lacking right now, and I don't know what's gonna happen with those fighters who are meant to compete in the women's featherweight division. I guess compete in the flyweights and in the bantamweight divisions, but the flyweight division and the bantamweights are really stacked. They're very deep, especially the women's fight division right now. The women's fight division outside the top 10 rankings, within the top 10, it's comprised of a lot of fighters who are journeymen, or a lot of fighters whose win records aren't really all that appealing to the eye, but there's a lot of really good prospects in the women's fight division. And two prospects that I'm really interested in is Ariana Lipski against Luana Carolina. Carolina, she's a warrior, but dang, Lipski, impressive performance by Lipski. She won via first round. Okay, it's hard for me to explain how the submission hold even happened. So, Lipski drops Carolina here. Yeah, so Lipski drops Carolina. For some reason, it's not considered a knockdown, but Lipski drops Carolina with the right hook. Wow, I'm looking at the fight stats here. She knocked her down. She started working her onto the cage. And then Lipski was on full guard on Carolina. Then she just turned around and she gave her back to Carolina. And I was so confused. I was like, even Michael Bisping was talking about it. He was like, why did Lipski turn around? Why is she purposely giving her back to Carolina? And then I saw what Lipski was doing. Carolina was attempting a leg lock submission hold that really wasn't going to go anywhere. She just wrapped her leg around Lipski's leg. Nothing really was happening. Then Lipski was able to go bend Luana Carolina's leg back behind her head, and then you can hear Carolina scream. And I saw that, and it made me feel, oh my goodness, ouch. Because I've been choked out. I've tapped out through rear naked chokes. And I've seen many fighters. I don't think there's any submission hold out there in UFC history that has been tapped out other than the rear naked choke. And so, when I've seen the rear naked choke so often, I've been placed in the rear naked choke, and whenever I see it, I'm like, yep, he's got the choke down. Yep, alright then, there it is, yeah. I reacted more to Lipski's leg hold, submission hold, than I did for Figueiredo's 4 rear naked choke attempts on Benavidez. Because what she really did, now visualize Cirque du Soleil people, or people who are participating in the circus, or gymnastics people. We all know that person who has the ability to somehow shape their body or morph it down where they can go fit inside a small box because they put the back of their leg on the back of their neck and then they squeeze themselves and they look like a small square or a small circle. It looks very bizarre. I'll wait right now, if none of you have done it, try extending your leg, place it on the back of your neck without bending your knee. Yep, you heard me. Extend your leg forward with either arms, bring it back, and try to move your knee behind the back of your neck without bending your knee while keeping your leg straight. It hurts. It really hurts. I remember a video. I recommend people going up and looking at AKA videos on YouTube. They're really funny. There was one video where Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was talking to this one fighter, and this one fighter says, hey, I got the perfect jiu-jitsu game. And Khabib was telling him, he's asking him, how do you have the perfect jiu-jitsu game? And then the guy does this weird thing with his legs, where he was able to wrap both of his legs to the back of his neck, so it literally was impossible to wrestle the guy. And you could see Khabib, his jaw dropped, and he started giggling to himself. It's so funny. It's so funny seeing, if you watch videos of Stern, Khabib Nurmagomedov, where he's like, I'm a fighter, send me location, I can go beat anybody, I am strong, I am powerful. Then you see this one guy, contorting his body all weird, and then Khabib was like, what? Wow. I'm telling you right now, dude, if you're to do that to a wrestler, you automatically win. And it's so insane. And so Lipski was able to do, she's able to do a submission hold on Carolina. Carolina is screaming. She couldn't even stand up when the referee has to go raise the arm up. Impressive. And I'll give you the fight stats here also. So, Irena Lipski, she won in the first round, 1 minute and 28 seconds into the fight. She landed 11 out of her 12 total strikes. She landed 3 of 4 significant strikes. Put down, Carolina she had 1 submission attempt. Yeah, she had 1 submission attempt, and I wouldn't even really count submission hold here. But, man, Irena Lipski landed 11 out of 12 total strikes. Impressive. Absolutely impressive. Wow, that's a name you should definitely go look out for. And then, there's a recent interview coming here from SB Nation. Irena Lipski on knee bar win. You wanted violence, right? There you go. Female flyweight Irena Lipski ecstatic about her submission win against Luana Carolina. So in this image here, shown on SB Nation, you get to see the submission hold, and it looks nasty. It looks incredibly nasty here. Ow, just looking at it makes my leg hurt. After 3 UFC outings in which former KSW female flyweight champion Irena Lipski failed to live up to her nickname, the Queen of Violence, finally justified it in her last showing at UFC Fight Night 172. The 26-year-old made quick work of Luana Carolina, finishing her opponent with a vicious knee bar just 88 seconds into the first round. In an interview with Combate, Lipski confessed it took her a while to find her rhythm in the UFC after losing her first couple of bouts and not having an impressive win against Isabella de Pueda. However, Ariana grows and grows more confident with each training camp and believes she is well on her way to become a better fighter every time she steps into the octagon. "You wanted violence, right? There you go," she said. "I'm finding myself. I've been understanding my game plan better and what I have to do to maintain my strategy in the fight, no matter who my opponent is. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of training. I need to know myself and understand. I think we've been able to do this pretty well, taking it slow. Things are happening at the right time." After not being happy with herself in her first 3 UFC bouts, Lipski could finally remove some of the pressure from her shoulders with the highlight reel win against Carolina. Although she expected a knockout victory, leg locks were always a part of her arsenal, so Ariana was thrilled to be able to finish the fight in such a strong manner and showing her ground game. "I'm very happy with my performance and the outcome. I said I was going to finish it in the first round. I wanted a knockout, but I was confident that should the fight hit the ground, I'd be able to score a submission. I figured she would be moving around because that's her thing. Like I said, I started to pressure her. I was looking for the knockout. The moment she kicked my leg, I punched her stomach and she went down. I got into her guard. That didn't count as a knockdown, which is surprising. She tried to hold me when I postured up to her. She'd maybe lose my balance and went for the calf slicer. I saw her leg and started to put my weight on top of her body so I could put her knees in between my legs. In my last fight, I went for 2 leg locks but couldn't finish them," Ariana continued. "We went back to the gym, made the adjustments, and I had that in mind in this fight. When I saw her leg, it was a familiar position because we drill it so much at the gym. I pulled her leg with all my strength and it worked. We were training for that because she has very long legs. It wasn't a fluke, it was all planned." Before the win, Lipski, 13-5, scored a unanimous decision victory over Isabella de Pueda back in November of 2019. The victory snapped a 2-fight losing streak for the 26-year-old, who lost her first 2 UFC bouts to Johan Calderwood and Molly McCann via unanimous decision. Okay, you shouldn't be disappointed by that. Johan Calderwood right now is arguably, not even arguably, it's like Johan Calderwood, Killer Kagan. You could say either of those 2 women are the second best fighters in the women's fight division right now. Johan Calderwood was supposed to be next in line against Valentina, but things just didn't go her way. Injuries, random occurrences happening, and so she couldn't do that. Molly McCann was at one point a top 5 fighter in the rankings. So yes, the Lipski should not be disappointed at all. She had an amazing performance, a very impressive performance against Luana Carolina. There's a lot of top contenders and a lot of good prospects coming up in the women's fight rankings right now. The future for the women's fight rankings right now is incredibly bright. Very bright. We got Amanda Ribas, who is only 30 years old right now, who's pretty much just reaching at her peak in her prime right now. We still haven't seen the best out of Ribas, and Ribas, if you haven't followed her any of her interviews, and how much she talks about the fight game and her MMA career and how she perceives and what she expects out of herself in her career, she has very high expectations. Very, very high expectations of herself, and that she has the expectation of becoming a dual champion. That's what she says herself. She says that she wants to be just like Amanda Nunes, become a dual champion and dominate. And the way she talks about it is so casual. She's like, yeah, I'm going to defeat Paige Van Zandt, then I'm going to defeat somebody else in the top 10, then reach the top 5, become champion, then work my way up to another division, become a double champion. I can see that happening. And I like that. I like the confidence. And then we got someone like Maria Agapova. Maria Agapova, have you checked her physicals? I mean, her physicals, if you look at her stature, and if you just look at her presence, she looks like a star. She looks like such a star-making fighter. I can imagine her being a main eventer, or competing in the co-main event, selling out tickets. She has natural charisma. She's very likable. Her striking is absolutely stellar and amazing. Now, her grappling ability, you gotta have to think about that. Marina Pope is one of those fighters, in that her reach and size advantage is definitely gonna help her out for the longest time of her career, especially in the flyweight division. Now, whether she'll be able to develop the skills to being a great grappler, or to have a jiu-jitsu game, or to have a reverse wrestling game, or being able to go fight somebody to clinch, which are her biggest issues right now. Yeah, those are definitely huge holes for her, but she's only 22 years old. Maria Agapova is only 22 years old. She's still improving, and her performance against Hannah Cifers was, wow, dominance. Absolutely dominant. And Agapova, I won't be surprised if she kind of plays the role as the Sean O'Malley of the women's fight division. Cause Sean O'Malley right now, he's calling out people are calling him out, he's being presented as if he's this big star. Sean O'Malley is in that same position as like Sage Northcutt was and Paige VanZant, where they were X amount of years ago, like 3-4 years ago, where they're presented as they are the future of this industry, of this organization, and you can expect them to dominate their future opponents. Sean O'Malley, he's doing a lot more better in his time as a prospect than Sage Northcutt is, doing a lot more better than Paige VanZant is. And for Maria Agapova right now, with the way how she's fighting and with the way how I see her, I expect nothing but great things from her. I really do expect a lot. And then Lipski here, she fights like a veteran. Lipski, she's been at the fight game for a while, but she's still only 26 years old. So in the next 4 years, we will see the very best of Lipski. And I'm excited for that. The UFC Women's Fight Division, that's healthy. I don't know what the future is for the Women's Feather Division. The Women's Bantamweight Division, according to Dana White, he says he really wants to stack up the division. He really wants to build that division up, the Bantamweight Division a lot, focus in on it, and make as many contenders as possible to go fight against Amanda Nunes. Because right now, the Bantamweight Division right now, that has to be the third best division, in my opinion. I gotta say right now, what's like 1 through 3, what's the best women's divisions? The Women's Fight Division, Women's Flight Division, and then the Women's Bantamweight Division. Those are the 3 divisions in that order do I believe are the most, fun to watch. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after a short break here.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. Coming up this Saturday will be the Last Fight Island show, and is being reported by WMMARankings.com. UFC Fight Island 3, Marina Rodriguez, looking forward to giving fans an exceptional fight. UFC strawweight Marina Rodriguez trained behind closed doors at her home gym, Thai Brazil, in Florianopolis. Only 4 people were allowed in the gym as she prepared for her bout against Carla Esparza. Head coach Marcio Malco closed all public classes, while he trained Rodriguez alongside with grappling coach Igor Soares and training partner Diana Turqueto. Rodriguez, 12-0-2, spent 10 days training at Alpha Male in February. She had the opportunity to learn different aspects of martial arts with Fabio Prado and Uriah Faber. My own viewpoints on Team Alpha Male? It was nice to know a new environment that was the same goals in fighting that I have. Fabio embraced us when we visited Alpha Male, Rodriguez said. He took us to train with Faber and the team gave us their full attention. The strawweight's Muay Thai ranks high amongst all 115-pounders in the UFC. However, takedown defense is something that will be highlighted when she squares off against Carla Esparza. Rodriguez recently faced Cynthia Calvillo, where she kept the fight on the feet until Calvillo pinned her down in the 3rd round. The judges scored it as a draw, while many thought Rodriguez dominated the first 2 rounds with her significant strikes. Calvillo's takedown in the last round, time controlled, and damage done on the ground affected a result that could have been a unanimous decision for Rodriguez. Esparza will look to take this fight to the ground, as she always does for every fight. She's tied with Claudia Cadella with 34 takedowns, the most in UFC strawweight history. Ty Brazil's Rodriguez looks to stay undefeated, and fighting at Fight Island makes it a bit more special. I wanted and knew I would be at Fight Island. It's a fantastic idea having fights on an island. I will make the most of this opportunity, Rodriguez said, and I'm looking forward to giving MMA fans an exceptional fight. Rodriguez versus Carla Esparza on Saturday, July 25th, will be featured on the main card, which is headlined by Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. Marina Rodriguez versus Carla Esparza. Who do I think is going to win that fight? I always say bet on the safe pick. Every time I make a prediction for any fighter, I always choose the safe pick. I always choose the fighter with the greater background, with the better accolades and accomplishments, and I look over their past 3 fights. Carla Esparza, she's had a great run of her past 3 fights here. If Carla Esparza takes Marina Rodriguez down, then Esparza wins this, obviously. But I'm looking at Esparza's fights with Michelle Waterson, and I looked at the recent fight of Carla Esparza. I forgot her name, but I remember how it went down, where pretty much Carla Esparza, the only time Esparza feels like she's ever winning any round or any fight is only when she just goes full throttle and pressures her opponent a lot with her quick short jabs. She squeaked away a win in the 3rd round because she was able to do that, and she was able to land some good punches onto Michelle Waterson. Let's say Michelle Waterson is a better overall fighter than Marina. That's the interesting part here. I think if Waterson were to fight against Marina Rodriguez, I think Waterson would win. That's what I believe in. But Marina Rodriguez versus Carla Esparza in this matchup here, it is the obvious tale of wrestler versus striker. And in most cases, the wrestler always wins. So even though Carla Esparza is the safe pick, I'm choosing Marina Rodriguez. That's how it is. I'm choosing Marina Rodriguez is going to win. And the reason for that is because Carla Esparza has to decisively defeat her opponent in order to go reach to the top 5 rankings right now. Claudia Cadella, Michelle Waterson, and Carla Esparza. 3 veterans of the sport, 3 gatekeepers who are just outside the top 5 but still represent the top 10 in the women's strawweight rankings here. In order for any of them to really reach their way to the top 5 rankings and face off against the people the likes of a Rose Namajunas, or a Tatiana Suarez, or a Nina Ansaroff, or a Jessica Andrade, they have to come away with a performance that's really dominating, that's very decisive. And when you look at Waterson, Esparza, Claudia Cadella, they all fought the recent fights way too safe, way too passive. And although Claudia and Esparza were able to go win their fights, it was obvious that the level of skill that they displayed and their ability as a fighter, their ceiling isn't high enough to place them anywhere near the top 5 in the rankings. So how do I predict this? I think Esparza is going to be a lot more of a pressure fighter in this scenario here. She chased Michelle Waterson throughout all 3 rounds of action in her fight against her. But I think Carla Esparza's team are going to be like, alright, Carla, you have to decisively dominate Marina Rodriguez here. You have to ground and pound her. You don't fight safe. Don't fight passive. You have to do what it takes to show Dana White, to show the top brass of the UFC that you belong in the top 5, that you are about 2 wins away from getting a title fight. 2-3 wins. So the fight happens. Carla Esparza, she goes in. She becomes ultra aggressive. Then Rodriguez is going to pull out. And here's the thing. Carla Esparza, she's going to go in. She's going to go ultra aggressive. Marina Rodriguez is going to clinch in, go for a knee, go for some dirty boxing. And although Esparza has improved in her dirty boxing, I don't think it's in the level of Marina Rodriguez. I still give confidence in that. So Carla Esparza is going to be a little bit more reckless in her fight against Marina, which is going to provide an opportunity for Marina to go and get a knockout. I say right now, I don't think Marina Rodriguez is going to defeat Carlos Barza by decision. I don't really see that. I see Esparza either winning this fight by decision, or Esparza being very reckless in her takedown attempts, or very reckless in her ability to go apply pressure, that the end result is her opening stuff up for Marina Rodriguez to go knock her out. Is it going to be with a knee? Probably an uppercut. Those are two real possibilities of happening. They really are. It has been announced that Junior Frey vs. Loma Lookboonmee is targeted for an October 3 UFC event. An exciting strawweight matchup is targeted for UFC's October 3 event. Former Invicta Atomweight champion Junior Frey, who is 9-5, is expected to face Thailand's Loma Lookboonmee, 4-2, at a to-be-announced location. It probably will take place at the Apex Facility Building in Las Vegas. Junior Frey got the call-up to the UFC in June on just 1 week's notice to face fellow Invicta standout Kay Hansen. Frey lost the bout via submission in what was her first appearance at 115 pounds. Lookboonmee became the UFC's first fighter born in Thailand when she joined the promotion in 2019. She has split her 2 UFC appearances, a decision win over Alexandra Albu, and a decision loss to Angela Hill. What weight division is this fight going to go under? If it stays at 115, I don't think Junior Frey is going to win. I don't really think so. When I saw Junior Frey against Kay Hansen, even though Junior Frey came in, Junior Frey has the same problem Michelle Waterson has, in the fact that she is a good fighter, objectively. It just, as it pertains to the physicals, that's where things go down. I don't mean the physicals, I mean like her size, her stature. I don't think she should be competing at 115. But that's the best division for her. It really is. She's coming as an atomweight champion just like Michelle Waterson, and then she struggled at strawweight, and now the rumors going out that Waterson should go compete at flyweight, or they should make an atomweight division. If the women's featherweight division is not gonna be there, and it's gonna be disbanded, and Dana White wants to go and emphasize a lot more on the bantamweight division, well, there's a real possibility we could go see the UFC have an atomweight division. If the UFC were to have an atomweight division, I think that would be really good for a whole lot of women. And it would make fighters like Junior Frey and Michelle Waterson pretty much go get a second win in their career. I think that would be very, very helpful. The Jungle MMA's Ariana Melendez aims for a 2020 pro debut. This coming in by Christian Placencia by WMMA rankings. The Jungle's amateur strawweight Ariana Menolandes takes on Amber Cook Wesley at Combat Night Orlando this Saturday. A fight that might be her last amateur bout. We are going to take it fight by fight. However, we have an agreement that I'm going pro right after this fight, Melinda said. After this fight, I'll start training for those pro rounds and start getting used to not using any shin guards and wait for a contract to be signed. Melendez set a goal to make her pro debut this year, she added. Striking coach Alex Brooks said an impressive win would help the strawweight launch her professional career. If she dominates this fight, we are going to be looking to get into Invicta FC and start her pro career strong. Brooks said, I think it'll be the right move to make. Hopefully that can happen maybe later in the year. She's trying to get things rolling there. She's determined with her goals in the sport. This will be the third time that this bout has been scheduled. Cook Wesley suffered an injury during a sparring session in the initial scheduled bout on November 23. The strawweight bout got rescheduled for April, but it got cancelled due to COVID-19. From the first time we got matched up, I knew it would be a challenging fight for me. I'm excited that's all coming through right now, Melinda said. It's not a rivalry, but she's someone that I'm looking forward to fighting. Although the strawweight said it's not a rivalry, Brooks said it's like the misfortunes of Khabib and versus Ferguson not happening. This is our version of Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov in a smaller scale. But that's how it felt for us, he said. Ariana was supposed to make her pro debut earlier this year, and this happened. She's been preparing for this one for about 8 months. Melendez comes off a victory over Naomi Young via unanimous decision in February at Combat Night 115. Coach Brooks noticed her growth with the cage work she displayed in her knockout victory against Katie Bovett in September. Ariana improved a lot in just mixing it up, coming up with different combos, Brooks said. We looked at some fighters who are a bit shorter for their division, such as Chad Mendes, since she tends to be shorter than the girls she fights at 115. She never stops working hard. Anytime that we do work out, we want to do a little bit extra and ask for extra pad work, Brooke said. It's crazy. The amount of drive and desire she has to be the best. She improved a lot on her cardio, speed, and has gotten a lot better, and her ability to read other people. An amateur record of 2-2 doesn't describe what she will bring to the table. Melinda's skill set are worthy of glancing upon as she closes her amateur career. So congratulations for her amateur career of 2-2. Yikes. I don't know. I'm used to boxing. So I was part of a boxing team. And then there was one fighter, this one young kid over here, and he's expected to go do boxing. For boxing, for an amateur, you're expected to fight around 200 times. Like if you look at Alistair Overeem, when he did amateur fighting, he fought way more fights as an amateur than he did as an MMA fighter. And I remember some other podcasts and a lot of people were talking about it, and that amateur boxers would fight upwards of 100 to 200 times. For amateur wrestlers, they would constantly compete in tournaments. I remember a video from Khabib Nurmagomedov where he talked about how often he would compete in the amateur circuit before he officially went pro, and that he would go and participate in sambo tournaments, he would participate in boxing, judo tournaments, wrestling tournaments. He would compete in multiple tournaments at a pretty much weekly to bi-weekly basis. Because that's how much she wanted it. And so for her to go 2-2, that's really, if she's good enough to go and be able to win this fight, then make the transition into Invicta, then we've seen it a lot of times. We've seen a lot of fighters who go from Invicta to UFC. Jin Yu Frey and Kay Hansen are the two most recent examples of this. If she can go and make the transition from amateur to Invicta, and then make her way up to Invicta, which way, you don't need to spend that much time in Invicta in order to make the transition to the UFC. Obviously, you can tell here that Melinda's her main goal is to make it to the UFC. She has about maybe 2-3 years in her. 2-3 years in her that she's to go put up some work with, and then from then she can go and make the transition into being a UFC fighter. If all things work out well for her, she should be able to go officially pro in the highest level in the year 2023. I'm that high on her. I really am. Hopefully she does a lot more better than I'm always thinking about boxing all the time. It's hard for me to not talk about MMA without thinking about boxing. I remember I was in Vegas one time and I saw a show between two amateur boxers. And these two amateur boxers are both in their mid to late 30s. I think it was like 37, 36 years old. Their amateur career was like really bad. And so this was a pro fight. This is a professional fight. And both of them had like mediocre records. I think it was like 3-2 or 7-6, something very, very mediocre. And then the entire fight, it was a 5-round fight. 5 round, 3 minutes per round. And you just hear the commentary team talking about, oh man, ain't this awful? More athletes should spend more time in the amateur circuit before they become pros. So 5 rounds, every round you always hear the commentary team, more amateur experience. And then the two boxers had a really bad fight. So I'm hoping Ariana Menolandes, her experience being an amateur, hopefully carries over when she fights professionally. You're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back right after a short break here.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So in every episode, I always like to end the podcast with something a little bit more goofy or fun or something silly. And in this scenario, I always like doing either quizzes or personality tests or just reading up on the strange, bizarre forums that pertain to Reddit or other websites. But in today's episode, I'll be taking a quiz here. I know quizzes are not fun typically, but, for some reason, some of these quizzes are pretty dang, strange, and I enjoy the strange. So this is coming in from Quiblo.com, and the headline being, what UFC fighter are you? There's been nearly 6,000 responses, and I'll be taking these quizzes here. You can go and interact and play with the quizzes back at home, and let's see what kind of result you may have here. So, what fighter are you? What type of fighter are you? There are 12 questions, multiple choice, and I'm gonna go through each question here, and I'll give you my reasoning as to how I got to certain answers. So, there is 1 minute left in the final round, and you think you may have won the fight. What do you do? Once again, there is 1 minute left in the final round, and you think you may have won the fight. What do you do? Take your opponent down and let the clock tick down? Nope. Go for a tap out, nothing to lose? Nope. Get a few kicks in, but move around? No. I don't get, why do fighters go for kicks against wrestlers in the final minute of a fight? You're just asking to be taken down. Throw some heavy punches. No. So, you may have so let's say I think I have won the fight, and consider the fact that I believe I'm a pretty knowledgeable person as it pertains to UFC, and my cornermen are gonna give me good advice, and when they say I'm winning the fight, I know I'm winning the fight. They know I'm winning the fight. I say, depending on who I'm fighting for, I'm gonna go take my opponent down and let the clock tick down. So if I'm fighting against a striker, I'll take him down. If I'm fighting against a wrestler, I'm just gonna go for I don't know. If I'm going after a wrestler, I'm just gonna play keep away. You are announced the winner. What do? Do you holler at the lights and the crowd, climb the cage and pose, raise your hands and leave, yell and show your muscles? I'm gonna yell and show my muscles right in front of the cameraman. Who are you most likely to have as a sponsor? An energy drink, beef jerky, hunting gear, or clothes? I'm a beef jerky guy. Honestly, my clothing wear, although kind of complicated, isn't all that fancy. Like, I'm a fan of Calvin Klein and all that stuff though, but I don't think Calvin Klein is gonna go and appeal to the UFC. You are in a press conference and are labeled the underdog. What do you say? Do you say, underdog? Oh, I am a beast, just no underdog. Boo. Do you say, fair enough, but I'll make my case in the octagon? Boo. Do you say, whatever you say, I ain't getting knocked out, that's for sure, I will win this fight? Boo. Or the last one, do you say, you guys say what you will, but I'll get the last laugh? These are all cringeworthy, but I'm gonna choose the most cringiest one of them all. Underdog? Oh, I am a beast, just no underdog. Alright. Do kids have your posters on their walls? Do they pay money for them? That's what I'm thinking right now. And so, for sure, if they watch it, I am popular, so yeah, well, I would think so. I don't think so, but you never know. If I am popular, heck yeah, they better be buying my posters, man. You are awarded a title match. You'll respond first by saying, woo, the title's coming home, baby. Or do you say, I want to be the best, I have to do my best? Or do you say, or do you hit the octagon? What do you mean you hit the octagon? How do you respond with hitting, do you just punch the floor? Or do you start a furious workout? I'm gonna start a furious workout, that's what I would do. Just posting up like troll Instagram videos of myself lifting heavy weights. In a press conference, would you start a fight if provoked? Absolutely, I am no pushover. No, I don't want my fight to be prolonged. I want to make money. That's me. If I am pushed to a certain edge, no. I got too much respect for the sport, so nah. I would get up in this race and push up. No, I would not instigate anything. I've seen fights that end up being suspended, or, someone's getting suspended, or a fight being delayed because of an altercation. I don't want to deal with that. I want to make my money. So I'm not going to go and trash talk back if I'm being provoked. What would you rather work on in your MMA training? So I want to work on my wrestling IRL. Everywhere I need to be strong, I want a tap out victory. Mostly upper body strength. That's not really MMA training. I can just lift weights for that. Work on my kicks, but I need to work on defense to now. Alright. My punches, someone's getting knocked out. Can I work on my wrestling? I want to work on my grappling and my wrestling. Apparently that's not an option. So, I'm Khabib Nurmagomedov apparently. Khabib would say he wants to work on his leg kicks, because according to him, he says he has really good leg kicks, but his coaches are just preventing him from even doing them. Since there's no wrestling, I'll say everywhere I need to be strong if I want to tap out victory. Why do you fight? Question number 9. Why do you fight? Do you want to make an impact? To be the best and win titles? Now it's for respect, but I've always wanted titles. What the hell? To prove I'm the king and to get respect. What? Like, 2 of them are about respect. And to be the best means you want to be respected. And by making an impact, you want people to notice you so they can respect you. Can I just fight for the money? I'll say, now it's for respect, but I've always wanted titles. Alright. What is your style? Boxing, currently, as of right now. Where are you from? The North? West Central? Southwest? West Central. How big are you? Right now, I am 228. So I got the options here are above 225, 205, 205 and up, 195, 205. So if I continue my work rate right now, by the end of this year, I should be around 220, 218. But I'm gonna go for above 225 for now. So who does my personality fit? And wow, I don't get Conor McGregor for the 15th time. I get Quinton Rampage Jackson. I am a KO fighter. Says here, you are a flashy fighter with many endorsements, and the reason for that is because you are a puncher. You like to get the knockout. You use your strength for KO power. Okay, Rampage Jackson is not a flashy fighter. He's a great fighter, but not a flashy fighter. Somebody in the comments said, I did boxing for 6 years, but for some reason, I got Brock Lesnar. Oh, and also, I am a girl. What the other people got Brock Lesnar? Apparently, I am in the minority here. The large majority of people who chose this personality quiz ended up getting Brock Lesnar. Okay. I'm actually redo this again. How do you end up being Brock Lesnar? Because I want to be like Brock Lesnar. I want to be gigantically huge and stacked and be a pro wrestler while making I want to be the type of person who can make a whole lot of money while doing very little at the same time. So, what would Brock Lesnar do? He would take his opponent down and do ground and pound till the minute's over. He did that against Mark Hunt. He would yell and show his muscles. He would get hunting gear. I know that for sure. What would Brock Lesnar say if someone called him the underdog? He would call himself a beast. So my answers fit in line with Brock Lesnar, but I didn't get Brock. Do kids have your posters on the walls? Well, okay, I chose a Brock answer. I am popular, so yeah. You are awarded a title match. Your first response is start a furious workout. That's something what Brock Lesnar would do. I'm surprised I didn't get Brock Lesnar. In a press conference, would you start a fight if provoked? But Brock doesn't... He trash talks, but he doesn't really provoke people. That's what I believe. So, I guess... Because he is a pushover in real... Okay, not really a pushover, but he's kind of an introverted guy. So I don't see him going out there doing anything outlandish. Unless, like, he and the other person, like, worked it out, like him and Daniel Cormier. If I am pushed to a certain edge... Oh no, I would get up to their face and push them. Alright, that's what Brock would do. Where would you rather work in your MMA training? What would Brock want to work at in his MMA training? He would like to work on his punches. Because his striking doesn't even work. Why does Brock Lesnar fight? He went into MMA because he wanted respect, and he also wants titles. Brock Lesnar is a wrestler, so I chose wrestling. He's from the Southwest. So I'll say Southwest, and he's above 225. Alright then, I should get Brock Lesnar here. And I'm checking out, and for some reason, I end up still getting Quentin Rampage Jackson. This, what the heck? What do you gotta do around here to be the beast incarnate? Aw, man. Gosh darn it. Ugh. And wait, whoa! Breaking news here. I did say that Irena Aldana versus Holm, that fight ended up being postponed, and now we got a reason here. This is coming in from BloodyElbow.com, that Irena Aldana confirms positive COVID-19 test led to withdrawal from Holm fights. The UFC Women's Bantamweight contender won't fight on August 1st, and this fight... Wow, that's actually... Okay, that kind of explains it. So it was reported earlier on Wednesday that Irena Aldana versus Holm would no longer headline the UFC's August 1st show in Las Vegas, and now we know not why. There's a statement released on Instagram, to which Irena Aldana confirms that she did test positive for COVID-19, which is the explanation as to why that fight ended up being cancelled, and why instead we got another fight replacing it, and we're getting Brunson coming into the main event. Yikes. So, good thing for the UFC again. Even though I have varying different viewpoints as concerns the UFC, but they're testing their fighters, they're avoiding huge calamity happening, they're testing all their fighters, and they're making sure that these fighters will compete in the octagon, and it is safe. Good thing they were able to catch Irena Aldana, being tested positive. Not only that, they also tested other fighters, being positive, whether it be coaches, cornermen, fighters. I remember the case of Jacare Ronaldo Souza, him being tested positive before his travel to Fight Island. So good on for the UFC for being able to spot these people who have COVID. They're also currently athletes right now in the... I don't know. I'm unsure the entire process of a fighter or of an athlete getting COVID. When can they come back to competition? Because right now the NBA season is kind of starting. We're in the preseason right now for the NBA return. The NBA return is going to come back next week. And two players are tested positive in Russell Westbrook and James Harden. They were tested positive. But they're expected to come back in 3 weeks' time. I understand that quarantine is a 2-week process, but but you could potentially be sick for up to 6 weeks. So I'm really unsure of the whole process happening, but good thing for the UFC for being able to catch this. Good on them. So, once again, UFC Fight Nights happening this Saturday. It's going to be a really fun one. Headline with Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. That's going to be an incredibly fun fight. It's an entire card full of really interesting aspects, like Alexander Gustafsson making his debut in the heavyweight division. That's going to be really interesting. You got legends in Roger Nogueira versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. We also have Carla Esparza trying to finally climb her way into the top 5 rankings against Marina Rodriguez, who's right now currently undefeated. It's a very interesting card, and I recommend everyone to go watch it. And that brings us to a close for today's episode. All I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.